Over 8 months ago, I made a video about the history of Sonic mascot costumes, and you all seem to go crazy over a lot of them, especially some of the more obscure characters like Cream and the Werehog. But as many of you pointed out, other characters in other games have also had video game mascot costumes made for them, and some of these characters are even older than Sonic. So today, we're going to take a look at something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at some of the most popular and most obscure gaming characters who came out during the 90s and even 80s, which actually received a mascot costume. From Nintendo to Sony and even the TurboGrafx, everybody was trying to give their mascot a costume. And some of these characters just might surprise you. So with that out of the way, this is the history of some of gaming's most amazing video game mascot costumes. So long before the days of E3, the big convention that all gaming companies attended was CES, also known as the Consumer Electronics Show. Alongside the latest in home electronics were gaming companies and their mascots trying hard to entice the press and retailers to their stands. In 1991, Tony Takushi attended the convention and took some incredible photos of some of the mascot characters wandering around. Up first we have these two characters from the TurboGrafx 16. We have Bonk from Bonk's Adventure and Zonk from the game Air Zonk. Bonk was a caveman type character, and there's actually video of him at the 1991 CES Expo, wandering around and interacting with visitors. And at one point he actually headbutts someone, which was the way you actually attacked enemies in his game. It's the first time I've ever seen a mascot character physically assault someone unprovoked. But what's amazing is despite how rare and obscure both these characters are, there's actually some video of both of them interacting with one another. So here is a game that I really need to make a video on sometime. The original Batman on the Mega Drive. It's one awesome game. It actually follows the plot of the movie really well, and despite it being a movie license, there's actually quite a competent video game behind that. It also has some of the best music on the Sega Mega Drive. Well, Sega decided to bring a Batman character to actually help promote their booth at CES in 1991. And you might be thinking, who is the unlucky person that had to wear the Batman cowl? Well, that's the thing. They didn't get Batman, they got the Joker. I couldn't find any video of this guy, but Sega actually had a performer dressed as Jack Nicholson's Joker to help promote their booth. And I've got to say, this guy looks awesome! Aside from his costume, which is pretty spot on, the actor's facial expression really sells the belief that he is in fact the Joker. So can you guess who this mascot is? Nope, it's not Gilius Thunderhead from Golden Axe. It's actually Olaf from the game The Lost Vikings. This is a great looking costume. Sadly, it's one of only 2 images that I can find of him, and it's a shame because this costume looks great. I would love to see this in motion someday. So today, you can find costumes based on all sorts of different video game characters that you yourself can actually buy. And some of these are kind of alright, and some of them... Oh mother. One such costume that you can actually buy is this. It gives the illusion that you're actually Mario riding on Yoshi's back. It's quite a fun costume, but Nintendo normally keeps their Mario and Yoshi mascots as separate entities. But this wasn't the case in 1991. Check this out. So this is actually an official costume of Mario riding on the back of Yoshi, and considering it's one of the early attempts to make an official Mario mascot costume, it looks pretty good, despite a slight creepiness to Mario's face. The Yoshi is kind of droopy, but he still looks quite good otherwise. And if you can believe it, a very small amount of footage actually exists of this costume in action. It's an extremely brief clip, but if you slow it down and freeze it, you can actually see that Yoshi's head is raised, so it looks like the performer had some control over it. But I have to admit, there is something really strange about how the performer moves in the costume. You can understand why Nintendo have never tried to recreate this effect. If there's any other video out there of this costume, I'd love to see it, so if you know of any, please let me know in the comments. But this wouldn't be the last time Nintendo brought a mascot to CES, because later in the year, very unexpected Nintendo character appeared. The Movie Goomba! That's right, my friends. Nintendo actually had one of the Goombas from the Mario movie at their booth one year. Considering how the movie turned out, I'm quite shocked to see this. But there is one tiny little adorable feature on this costume. The Goomba actually has a tiny dinosaur puppet that he operates, which lives in his pocket. Despite what you might think of the Mario movie, this costume's actually pretty cool, and that little detail is really adorable. So another Nintendo character that's received a number of mascot costumes over the years is Donkey Kong. And this might be one, if not the first Donkey Kong mascot costume to have ever been made. It only appears briefly in this one video clip, but what a clip it is. In 1994 at the CES Expo, Nintendo showed off Donkey Kong Country and also featured a huge interactive screen in which Wario would appear and mock visitors. Well, in this piece of footage, Donkey Kong approaches the screen and Wario begins to mock him. We only briefly see what the Donkey Kong costume looks like, but for a first effort, this looks fantastic. I would love to see more Donkey Kong mascot footage from other conventions if anyone has any. Please share them in the comments. And during the research for this video, I found a very brief glimpse of what appeared to be Mega Man wandering around the convention. The costume appears to be very large and bulky, the performer seems to move quite easily, and it's a shame you can't see the face in the video, but fortunately we know what it looks like because we actually have some picture. Oh no. That is quite terrifying. I could only find 2 photographs of this particular costume from this event. It looks almost like his face is melting into the suit.
Here are the combatants for this extravaganza. Bad Mr. Frosty versus Helga.
So does anyone here remember the game Clay Fighter? It was an odd little beat 'em up that used digitized footage of actual 3D clay models to create a fighting game. And one of the game's title characters was Bad Mr. Frosty.
Bad Mr. Frosty.
Bad Mr. Frosty, an evil snowman. Well, he actually got a mascot costume. There's a very short clip of him from the 1993 CES convention, but Bad Mr. Frosty is going to return in this video in just a few moments. So the final image that I'd like to show you comes from another CES convention, and it shows 2 characters that we've already seen so far in this video. The first one is Zonk, and the other one is Olaf, but there's also a third character on here. Barbie! Because of course, Barbie had a game to promote, so they hired a model to dress like Barbie. Wow. So in the original Sonic the Hedgehog mascot video, I showed some footage from a TV show of what potentially is the most incredible piece of footage to exist that shows various video game mascot characters. And it comes from the 1993 Christmas special episode of Bad Influence. Bad Influence was a UK gaming show which was actually not that bad. In fact, a few times it was really good. Well, in 1993, for their Christmas special, their entire studio was full of different video game mascot characters. Aside from the excellent Sonic and Tails costumes, we also see an early Mario costume, which is about on par with the quality of the Sonic costume. There's a Cool Spot mascot that struts his stuff on camera, and whilst it's not exactly hard to make a costume based on that character, it's just surreal to see this character in a mascot form wandering around as good as he does. Several characters from the game Lemmings also appear throughout the show, each one wearing a different outfit. This game was insanely popular back in the early 90s, so it's no surprise that they appeared on TV like this. But in today's climate, it's just so strange to actually see this image. Bubsy also makes a few appearances, and even
Bad Mr. Frosty.
Bad Mr. Frosty is also walking around. But one huge surprise is that there's a giant mascot costume of Konami's Sparkster from Rocket Knight Adventures. At the start of the show, he's just standing behind Andy Crane, so we don't get a too good a look at him, but thankfully, around the midpoint of the episode, he appears centre screen with his back to us. He's actually wearing the jetpack from the game, and when he turns around, we get a good look at his face. It's quite an incredible costume. It's probably one of the best 90s mascot costumes that I've ever seen, given the detail on his original character, how they've transferred it to this actual physical costume. One highly unique mascot from this episode comes from the game Zool 2. In this game, they introduced the female character named Zoos, and if you can believe it, she actually got a mascot costume. Unfortunately, you only get slight glimpses of her during the episode. She's always just slightly out of shot or obscured. But what about the actual title character from that game, Zool himself? Well, he's also in the episode, but it seemed that whoever authorised the Zool characters to appear on the show wanted to do something unique. Zool appears in his mascot costume form, but he's actually dressed in a Santa outfit, complete with a giant white beard. It's crazy to not only see two characters which today are quite obscure together in the same clip, but also that one of them has been themed to fit the Christmas season. So there's one final character who technically is a mascot character, but I doubt many of you will be able to guess who it is. At the start of the episode, you might notice there's a young woman standing between Mario and Sonic. She almost appears like a ghost in the background of so many sequences in the episode. I was really struggling to identify who this person was supposed to be. And then at the very end of the show, she appears again, much closer to the camera, and I finally figured out who it was supposed to be. If you haven't guessed yet, look at her hair. Notice the hair bun covers. Yeah, that's supposed to be Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2. It's not a very good costume, in fact it's really basic, but it's definitely who that girl is trying to portray. And to be fair, we have seen worse costumes on this channel, so it's not quite as bad as that. So we're now going to move ahead a few years to the world of Sony computer entertainment. And ever since the release of the original PlayStation, there's been a lot of mascot characters on that system, both official and not official. Lara Croft at one point was seen as a Sony mascot. Sackboy is still seen as one, and least we not forget Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal. One day it might be fun to look at all the Sony mascot characters, because it's a really diverse history which is still evolving and continuing to this day. But one of the earliest Sony mascot characters, who rests in that unofficially official category that still has strong ties to the PlayStation brand, is this guy. Crash Bandicoot has had loads of mascot costumes since his original game in 1996. Since the remastered trilogy, several new costumes have also been made, but today we're just going to focus on this one from the 90s. The costume was used in Japan, and it greatly differs from the American costume, in that the American costume made it possible so that you could see the performer's face. Now, I don't understand why they did that either, but the Japanese costume completely covered the performer, and it's one magnificent costume. It's very detailed, and the performer can move around whilst wearing it. Well, between the releases of the original Crash game and Crash Bandicoot 3, several commercials were specially filmed and promotional sequences were also filmed in which the same costume appeared throughout. And something that I noticed is whilst the facial expression was static, they were able to change the eyes on the costume to give it whatever this look is. But it's really cool to see a video game mascot character try to change the facial expressions of his costume just by changing something as simple as how the eyes are presented. And then there was another piece of media that the costume was used for. And for those of us in the West, we had to wait years to see this, because when the game was released in Japan, a very special hidden cutscene was added to the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the Crash Bandicoot music video. Enjoy. This is one of the most glorious things I've ever seen. I mean, just look at all the stunts he does. That's some skill. And he even does that little dance that he does in the game. Whoever the performer was in this costume did an amazing job. And it really speaks volumes as to how well the costume was made, due to how much movement the performer was able to do in the costume. And then when Crash Team Racing came out, this happened! But Crash's commercials were also noteworthy because when the first Crash game was released, he was joined by another Sony mascot who happened to be in a very popular and very successful game that was also released in 1996, who knew that all you had to do in life was believe. Parappa the Rapper is a rapping dog, and he's had multiple mascot costumes since the original game in 1996. The mascot mainly appeared in Japanese commercials for the game, and due to the release of his game being so close to Crash's, they often appeared in the same commercial and even interacted with one another. The costume looked really good. The performer's actually able to do a little dance and get a lot of the movement out, which is impressive considering the odd shape of Parappa himself. In 2017, the game was even remastered for the PlayStation 4, and Sony actually commissioned a new mascot costume for it, which looked amazing. It was made by KCL Productions, who also produced the costumes for Nintendo, and if there's a demand, I'll talk about them someday. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. There was also some footage that was shot of the costume actually being created and tested out. As you can see, it was designed with some movement in mind to allow the performer to dance a little, much like Parappa does in the actual game. So I think that should do it for now. I've barely begun to scratch the surface on video game mascot characters getting a costume form. There's tons more out there, and some of them look really cool, and a lot of them have had some incredible time and effort put into them, despite only ever being used once. I'd love to highlight them sometime, so please let me know if you'd like to see more in the comments. Oh yeah, and one final mascot character costume that I should probably show you. Yeah, someone sent me the Sega World Sally mascot costume clip as an actual video file with audio. Let me know if you'd like a Sonic follow-up sometime. See you next time.
Bad Mr. Frosty!
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this little look at some of the amazing video game mascot costumes, please click that like button. And if you'd like to join the Badnik Army, be sure to click that subscribe and bell notification button. The videos I produce just wouldn't be possible without the amazing support of my patrons and coffee donators. All my donators receive a video credit, and Patreon supporters get early access to videos, as well as other thank you perks. So if you like the sound of early access to the content I produce, please use the links in the video description. Otherwise, just please share my videos on Twitter, Facebook and Reddit. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter for more fun and adventures. But most of all, just thank you for taking the time out to watch and enjoy the content I produce. It really does mean the world to me. Thank you.